You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Hmm.
With a Hong Kong creature.
Hmm.
With a Hong Kong creature.
There we go. All right. All right. So you might not know, but that's right. You're over there. This is where my demonstration is as well. So this is OBS over here, though. So I think you may know, you may not know that I am, fond of watching the culture, and I watch a lot of things. For example, I'm subscribed to a bunch of different Baptists, kind of spreading out from Kent Hovind to people that were criticizing Kent Hovind, people like Pastor Anderson, Eric Hovind, who doesn't seem to be doing much online these days. And that includes, libertarianists, minarchists. I've had a lot of discussions with various people like that over the years. And, I feel like watching that and the whole MRA and MGTOW and a lot of this reactionary, what I consider reactionary things sprout up. I saw how over a few years, it doesn't explain like who elected Trump. It's a broader, even weirder coalition, but it includes them, and they've been a lot for it. So I've been watching that. So here's what I have seen recently in the last couple months, more and more fracturing on this alt-right, alt-light, minarchist, Trumpist, Molyneux, Sargon, Mike Cernovich, Baked Alaska, kind of, internet blood sports, Swarovski sort of thing. Now, I don't watch all of those people a lot. I'm subscribed to Molyneux. I'm subscribed to Sargon. And then out on the outskirts of that, more in ordinary land, but definitely in that nation state, from my point of view, like the Thunderfoots, and then, people that would comment, or sometimes if I see a video that's like, what the fuck, I'll go ahead and search other people. I'll put, that are commenting on that. Basically, you type in, oh, Thunderfoot said what? Women need to dress better or else it's their fault they're raped. So I'm going to search Thunderfoot videos on, uploaded recently. So some of the fractures I've seen, and I'm pretty much talking about the internet thing. You could see it on YouTube, but it's obviously across social media. And then, there's a tip of that iceberg, or maybe it's the bulk of the iceberg, and the ones in the internet are the tip. So, but whichever, there's some relationship, but I'm really pretty much talking about people you could see on YouTube. But I'm implying also there's a relationship to what we're seeing in politics and whatnot. So, for example, there's Sargon of Akkad has invented this thing called the liberalist. He's a liberalist. It's like when Mike Cernovich, I think it was after Charlottesville, said the alt-right was stupid. Like, what was the difference between him and the alt-right? We didn't get to hear that part. And then there's this alt-light and alt-right thing. At first, a lot of alt-right people were saying don't call it white, nationalist types. But then Sargon's turning on him seemed to be because you guys are white nationalists. So it's funny how alt-right is maybe becoming the white nationalist part. And there's some sort of drama with Baked Alaska. I've never watched his videos. I know of him because of the Charlottesville thing. He had some videos in there. And then I've heard some people that I do watch. Oh, V's another one of these guys I subscribe to. So he's kind of on the Sargon of Akkad side, I guess, liberalist, trying to fight with the alt-right, which is great by me. So Molyneux and Alex Jones, and Alex Jones, I'm sure anybody that even has their most remote interest in this is seeing that Alex is, had a meltdown, even though I saw a headline where he's like, no, Trump's okay. But he was like, F and fucking Trump. and Molyneux has been disappointed. You got people like Sticks and Hammer. Oh, that's another one I'm subscribed to. He he's a true faithful, as is I'll get to Scott Adams, and hasn't given up on him yet. Like you've got your Mass Faith, who's like, I think of him as your White Diamond and Silk, which I wrote to them, and they thought that was great. And they're upset. They're more interested in being peace activists and even joining with the right. Whereas, of course, Diamond and Silk, well, I don't think they're ever gonna turn on him. So there's these divisions, and actually, I was quite interested to see people like Molyneux, Alex Jones, even though I'm pretty sure Alex was faking it. People like that turning on Trump for the Syria reason. Because, I've been wondering all along, like, what would it take for any kind of the various kinds of Trump supporters to be, disappointed in him? How much of a leeway will they give him? So it kind of seems, by the way, that the other thing is the wall. People are like, no, I really wanted a wall. All right. So a simile. When I was a kid in high school, there was this other kid that thought atheism was sort of a fake. He didn't use the word fake news, but it wasn't a real thing. He thought his parents and his pastor had made it up to scare him, right? And I don't mean, he didn't think this thing you run into if you argue atheism, where some Christians are like, everybody really believes in God, the atheists just deny it. Or everybody believes in God, but the atheists are just Satanists and they don't want to admit it. No, he thought there was an atheist, right? And just because of his surroundings and everything like that, it seemed like surely there's no people that would actually disavow God. That would be crazy. So I think a lot of the alt-right, people that thought of themselves as the alt-right, are sure, people like V, that the severe and violent and dangerous type of racism, even though maybe they know what happened in history, maybe they think that's a lie. I don't know. They probably don't think about it. They don't like clear the fog and make a clear picture or something, but whatever. They basically didn't believe it and didn't think it would exist. But from a modern perspective of like, people wouldn't really want to kill you because of that, and so they like think that a racist idea is just like a pet peeve, not really, or a white lie, not really a problem. Come on. And it's inevitable that they're going to learn, that it does exist, and some of them are going to be disgusted by it. Mike Cernovich, as much as I can't stand that guy, I don't think he's just talking about these examples. Like he talked about the thing with the Starbucks guys. If you saw that, these two African-American guys just got arrested for not buying anything while they were waiting to meet someone else. And the guy they were meeting, who's a white guy, showed up right as they're getting arrested. It's like, what? And plus Sam Cedar showed another Starbucks video with a similar kind of problem. So some of the people in the alt-right are going to find, oh, wait, as I've cozied up to these people, they really are saying kill the Jews and everything. And maybe they thought, yeah, there is a lot of Jews in Hollywood and banking. Everybody, that's just science. And they didn't really get the level of hatred and the conspiracy of racism, or that, like maybe it was rare, like a serial murders. Of course it's out there, but most people that are racist are just being ordinary people. They don't really they don't know how dangerous it is. So they're going to find that out. And even if they still stay oblivious to it, or maybe, they're so they are racist themselves, and maybe latently or dispassionately or not as actively, but when they fall into the whole, standing wave of being in a community of racist people, they might still not notice it, right? Because maybe it does suit them. But in that case, they're going to face the ramifications, just like anything else. And that gets on to the next kind of thing. So you got Scott Adams and Cernovich, right? And I don't watch Scott Adams that much. It's just tedious to watch. But this is the guy that created the comic Dilbert. And you can see he thinks he's the guy writing the Dilbert comic. It's like if Charles Schultz actually hated Charlie Brown, is why he, made Charlie Brown. It's not unfortunate that he's treated that way. That's Scott Adams hates Dilbert. He's more like the pointy-haired boss, and he's more like the I don't know, whatever, the worker that doesn't work. He's a big Trump fan, I assume you know. I basically make videos for people that know the subject already that I'm talking about. Like, go watch these, search these things, and then come back here maybe. Now, he and Mike Cernovich, there's a feeling in the air, and there's a change coming. And Mike Cernovich is like, it's a vibration, and don't call me all new agey. And there's this vibration and very high energy people, high frequency, top functioning people. They're feeling depressed. That I know, my friends, they're feeling depressed. Something's happening. And then Scott Adams like, yeah, and there's something's happening, and they're both referring to each other. Scott Adams, Mike Cernovich. Anyway. And what's funny, too, about Scott Adams is, as he was doing this before Trump was elected, he was like being real coy about, I'm not saying I support Trump. I'm actually pretty liberal. I'm just saying he's a super genius, and he's going to gut you all in the palm of his hand, But as it goes on more and more, you can see, like, the greatest president ever. And Scott Adams thinks that Trump's going to just achieve a surprising and sudden peace in North Korea. He says that's the true test of Trump. But anyway, so they're both talking about the vibes. Now, Scott Adams is basically saying facts don't matter. And Cernovich is more saying experts don't matter. Okay? We're going to deal with those. First of all, obviously facts do matter. And saying that facts don't matter is just saying that facts do matter, but emotions matter more, which is funny because that's saying it is all about the feels. So these right guys who are like, who cares about your feels? It's just becoming more and more evident that they're like, they want in on the, I want to be a protected class too. That looks good to me. My feelings are important. Like they complain about trigger words for other people, but they get triggered like, you can't say problematic. People are like, on the right, on the new right, are like, oh, you said the word problematic. Oh, it's problematic. They just freak out about everything, as far as I'm concerned. They have tons of trigger words and whatnot. And so, Scott is just basically, whether he knows it or not, he's saying it's just the emotions that matter, which is like, yeah, in one sense, to you, it can make a more immediate reaction like a magnet can. But the gravity of the situation is facts, right? And Scott Adams was like, well, you could have, facts could matter, like if you step in front of a bus. Yeah, and there's some slow-moving buses. So it's hard for us who want to live with facts mattering, because it can take, a whole lifetime or decades or years, for facts to come. Mostly it's not stepping in front of a bus. Or at least some of them step in front of the bus and go quickly. But, statistically, there's a whole group, and it takes a long time for there to be an attrition from deciding to just live in your fantasy world. Well, facts don't really matter. It turns out you can think whatever you want, because that's what other people think and react to. Yeah, except for the real world is there. That kind of comes and make its tsunami sweeps. So, now Cernovich's version is just like I was saying, experts don't matter anymore. That I actually find more interesting. So I think I went through these things. Yeah, by noticing that nothing happens when Trump crosses these invisible lines of things like insulting the FBI or presumably like, grab him right in the pussy. People are noticing, wow, nothing actually happened, which to me is funny because I think a lot is happening and people are noticing that it's happening. Oh yeah, I wonder if I have any viewers. Commenters. Faith is there. Hi, Faith. And he's saying it's primarily a subjective world, but he's saying it's all about the feelings, and not that it shouldn't be. That's just the way it is. Like, it really is a subjective world. Like, it's it's a new agey thing, which is, I think, beneath a lot of the new right. Even going back to like fascism, there's this, it's a kind of conservatism that says, screw our ancient religions. Let's take up Indian, mysticism or whatever. Okay, but here this should be, so experts don't matter is a different thing. One, it's true that there's a lot of corruption among experts, right? So like you can hire a lot of experts, like below I say how geologists are pretty good. Well, you can hire some to say whatever you want, Definitely it's different in different areas, like pharmaceutical research, that has a lot of corruption, and yet they still do decent science. So, but anyway, one, there's corruption where people say things because they were paid to, as opposed to lying to themselves. And then two, there's always a community of these experts because they socialize with each other. They're in the same faculty together. They go to conferences. They know each other. And any culture will have its biases. So it's always, smart to go ahead and study both of those things, take them into account, but the expertise involved is still relevant. The example I used in this paragraph down here is that, historians have been really fond of being periods full of war. I think that's wrong. So they're all like on the wrong side of a huge moral issue for me, but those historians were still correct about when the battles came. They were still probably correct about who had beef with who as far as emotionally because of what past thing. They know a lot of the factual sequences, and the interpretation is different or even corrupt to me. The expertise doesn't evaporate because we disagree with them, and you have to face the actual information in their work and figure out ways to separate it out. It can't just be like, oh, look, Columbus was totally corrupt, so, he didn't actually find a continent. It's like, no, he still found a continent or whatever. Not the first one to find it or anything, but I just mean there was a factual journey there separate from what he thought he was doing or his version of victory. So it's definitely true that experts are not being listened to right now or trusted. And it seems sort of regardless of what I called their reputations, because it isn't regardless of their reputations. It's kind of like the ones that had such high reputations, the reputations got abused. So like law enforcement, as I was saying, industry related chemical and biological sciences, economics, various of the social side, have been caught up in severe ideological biases. But, this extends. There's some groups that deserve a reputation for honesty. I mean, physics and geology, pretty much all of the hard sciences deserve it. And even in chemistry and, pharmaceutical stuff, the academic world, there's a core of it, and the peer review process where, in a single study, a lot of shit flows by and gets reported in the science press. But as far as having 1,000 studies that confirm this lie, no, the 1,000 studies still come back with the truth, even, in something as corrupt as the biological effects of a particular useful industrial chemical or something. So it is kind of weird, some people don't seem to take into account, well, most people right now seem to not be taking into account the fact that you can't just dismiss the expertise. Even the corrupt experts have certain facts that they could present that you could double check separate from their corruption or not. You don't have to take their word for it. It's your fault, a world, that you were taking their word for it like they were priests. They have information, and along with their biases and cultural biases and possibly ulterior motives. And the way you get past that is you don't believe just one of them. You take surveys, you find out what each one's saying, you study what the factions are if you need to. And mostly, if you just have a lot of data and a lot of confirmation, then it's just a matter of if that whole community is corrupted. And that's fairly rare. It's more common that there's a common cultural delusion, like we've seen a lot in psychology. But even in psychology, because of the scientific process, though it might be slower, maybe because it's more complex or just emotionally difficult, we do slowly get out of things like, you know, putting homosexuality in the DSM and whatnot. So, the last thing is just that I think there's like a lot of the way communities form, okay? And I've seen this online. I think I've seen this in history too. And in online, though, is like a fast version. You have a quickly coalescing communities as people made the first network connections. And I imagine it'll keep going on in the future. But certainly as the networks new, these things have formed and they become really like an opaque, they look like a thing and they're real and people have this emotional attachment to them and they can dissipate and fracture. And basically it goes over and over, and you could think of examples of this. These people find each other and it's like, they get me. They think just like me. The atheists thought that when I was at Daily Kos, and the liberal bloggers thought that, right? And then they break up, just like the atheists. They find, well, first, before that, there's organization. They have events. Leadership takes place. Not necessarily the most popular. Sometimes it's a go-getter that'll do the hard work, or that goes ahead and goes out of their way and gets a venue. I think I actually held the first Daily Kos get-together that, you know, Marcos went to, and I was in Hawaii at the time. I was traveling to Berkeley and did it, you know, and that kind of thing happens. Then these grudges form as there's a realization that there's fundamental differences. Like in Daily Kos, you know, he said people were complaining about what they thought was the sexist ad that he was running, and he said, "Oh, the sanctimonious women's study set, you know, could get out of here." And that's when the purging of the kind of liberals Marcos didn't like began. And it happens, you know, in the Atheist Plus versus Thunderfoot, and we're seeing it right now. And the alt-right splitting over, you know, racism is not really a good thing to go to for. There's not a big future in it because we got planes now, and, you know, men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men of all different kinds of all the different races. And it's just, you know, I'm waiting to get my Ancestry.com back, and we'll see. For example, I thought everybody was bound to be sort of mixed, but I've been noticing some people that get those are pretty fucking white. So we'll see. Maybe I'll turn out to be whiter than I think. And you can watch my liberal disappointment. Because I'm expecting Polynesian and Cherokee. Okay. Then you get actual factionalism, like the Atheist Plus people making their own blogs and kicking Thunderfoot out, or like, you know, you can't be on my hangout anymore, I've had enough of you kind of stuff. Like, hey, I'm going to actually go and troll you guys now. Like Sargon sending gay porn to white nationalists, if I remember that story correctly. For fuck's sake. This is so hard to use. And then, of course, some of those factions, after the factionalism occurs, will persist. Some evaporate, some transform. And, for example, there were a lot of people that said, hey, there's other ways to do things besides this pure capitalism. Some of them weren't even anti-capitalist. They're like, hey, we need to get rid of the landlords. Hey, we need to have a producer co-op in a free market, you know. And, you know, anarcho-communism is sort of like that, for example. And sort of, you know, after the factions broke down, you had this idea of capitalism versus socialism, which are just really little factions of a bigger divide that, by the way, we're about to revisit, I think, right now. And then I believe that's that. All right, so... No, I call it that because Dynacat says, what's the new right? Haven't heard that label used. I was sitting here and you see how on one of the slides maybe I went alt-right, alt-light, minarchist. It's all of these people and the diamond and silk and the religious and all these people. So I just decided to call it new right. It's our current right, because that's the only thing I think they all would agree is that in one sense or another, they're more right wing than left. Indifferent Sky, hi to you too. Yeah, I did know that. Well, I places Facebook your info and it's collected and sold. Yeah, I did know that they're not trustworthy with it. 23andMe also specifically tries to get medical information, which I consider really problematic since we don't even have socialized medicine. But I decided I wanted to know it anyway, so I'm going to take my chance. That's how much I want to know. I did slightly think Ancestry and Me or whatever it is Ancestry.com was a little more trustworthy to me than 23andMe, not because of anything I know about the companies being trustworthy, but just because of their focus on what they do. But yeah, mostly, I was going to do this a year or two ago, and been thinking about that. So, but I decided I wanted to know more. And so many people in my family are getting it anyway, they'll triangulate on me. So, all right. Thanks for viewing either right now at the moment or in the future.